Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
There is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all argument, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. Good evening. My name is Hugh Douglas. I'm an alcoholic. I like to start off these little talks with that quotation out of a spiritual experience out of the later editions of this book for one fundamental reason. I've become convinced over the years that it is that contempt prior to investigation that causes us to give out a damn sight more 30-day chips in Alcoholics Anonymous than we do one-year birthday cakes. Contempt prior to investigation. Now, I would like to take a few moments out and say a few things before I start talking this evening. One of the things I would like to do is to thank Joan and all the rest of the committee that had anything to do with inviting Bev and I here for the weekend to spend it with you. We're very grateful for that, and I want to thank them publicly. I would also like to thank the taper. A lot of you may not realize it, but do you know that the only claim to fame that some of us will ever have, and our only claim on immortality, will be those tapes? And because of people who taped different programs, either on wire or on magnetic tape, you can now hear talks that Bill and Bob gave, Sister Ignatia, Ebby, and many of the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, as you can hear the talks of all who have went before you. So I'd like to thank the taper, too, for doing an excellent job of keeping this way of life afloat. I would like to welcome you newcomers, and I understand from listening to some of you that there are a lot of you here, and tell you, if no one has, that you're now a part of a fellowship that has astounded science for a great many years. This is the largest group of people anywhere in the world that have found a way to go from adolescence to senility without ever bothering to pass through maturity. So welcome. And if some of you are having a slight problem quitting drinking, I would like to remind you that quitting drinking is somewhat like making love to a gorilla, and you are not through until the gorilla is through. But I am sure that if you will buy yourself a copy of this book, do your damnedest to find somebody who can translate it for you, and I said translate, not interpret, that you too will find a way to stay sober. It's really not all that difficult, even though a lot of people like to think it is. It's really, well, in fact, I think that what most of us find in AA are three different difficult points that we don't fully understand. And one of them, the first one that we encounter usually, it's just too damn simple to be believable. You really can't believe it can be just that simple. Sometimes it takes 20 years to get it through your damned head that, yes, it's just that simple. There's really nothing complicated about it, nothing difficult about it, nothing hard to understand about it, except for one other thing that we also encounter, and that is that the whole concept of Alcoholics Anonymous is totally backwards to any other concept you'll ever study in any university, any school, any college, anything. It's just totally backwards. It is backwards for a very good reason. That reason is that alcoholics are backwards. If you ever watch somebody lighting candles on a cake, and there are a lot of candles on a cake, it makes no difference how long the guy who has lighting the candles has been sober. What will happen is that he will always light the outside first, then burn the hell out of these strands trying to light the inside last. So the whole concept is backwards because alcoholics are backward. The normal person thinks, acts, and feels in that order, and if they don't like the way they feel about something, they don't do it again. Not an alcoholic. He feels first, reacts to the feeling, and then he will think about it. Did you ever ask a newcomer, why in the name of heaven did you do that? One stock answer. I felt like it. He said, my God, man, didn't you ever think about it? That's what I'm doing now. So you'll see the whole concept is backwards. The title of the book is backwards. You ever wonder how they got the title Alcoholics Anonymous? Some years ago, before it had a title, and they were trying to find one, in a meeting room in New York, there was a little old drunk sitting there feeling a little sorry for himself. And what he said was, nobody loves us. Nobody hates us. We're just a bunch of anonymous alcoholics. Well, they don't remember who he was, whatever happened to him, where he went, but they never forgot what he said. They just turned the words around, and we come up with Alcoholics Anonymous out of Anonymous Alcoholics. Now we got a book title. Doesn't have much meaning, really, other than that. You try to understand it, you won't. Don't. It's simpler. They call this book the Big Book. There's a good reason for calling it the Big Book. It's because it is a big book. But there's no other reason for calling it a big book. And actually, it's rather remarkable in one way. If you look at the dust jackets on the later editions, you'll find it says it is the basic text for Alcoholics Anonymous. This book is also the basic text for Alcoholics Anonymous. And yet this book was published in April 1939. That's 52 years ago now. And the basic text has not been changed in 52 years. And it is the only textbook in existence that can make that statement. Medical textbooks are out of date before they're out of print. Engineering textbooks are obsolete before they're off the press. And yet for 52 years, this book, as it was originally written with only a few minor changes, and mostly to update it, has not been changed. Now this book and the Holy Bible, for you atheists, have one thing in common. Neither one of them are conference approved. And they're not conference approved because they were written before there was a conference. So it's not hard to understand why it's not conference approved. In fact, it's not even copyrighted. In fact, well, I could go on like this all night. So you find that there's an awful lot of things in AA that are difficult to understand unless you first understand the way it is backwards. Now, this book called the Big Book is only 400 pages long. The new books are 575 pages long, and yet they're not as big as a big book, and they also call them the Big Book. Now it gets a little confusing for newcomers. It shouldn't, because it's backwards. If you understand that, you're all right. The title page in this book is extremely important to understand because it says it is the story of how more than 100 men have recovered from alcoholism. Now, that's a simple statement. It doesn't say in recovery, going to recover, recovering, or anything else. It's just how they have recovered. The new books are a little different. It says it is the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. That'll explain to you why you're here. So if you happen to be a little psychotic, neurotic, idiotic, or anything else, that's not important to us. We don't give a damn. We do not cure those things. What we do is show you a way over a period of years of how to conceal them, so you can spring them on anybody at a moment's notice as a surprise. What we deal with is sobriety. Let's always remember we're a bunch of drunks trying to stay sober, not just a bunch of sickies trying to get well, and it'll make more sense. Because here's where the third problem comes in, and that is the myth that surrounds Alcoholics Anonymous and a 12-step concept. And there are a lot of myths in AA. In fact, there are more myth in AA than there are facts. There are 227 different anonymous groups today who call themselves this anonymous, that anonymous, something else anonymous. And most of them, unfortunately, I hate to admit it, started in Southern California. We've got the biggest bunch of nuts out there you ever seen in your life. We give the 12 steps to anyone who can use them, because we stole them any place we could get them from. We didn't originate them. We swiped them, reworded a couple of them, made everybody think they were something new, and yet they're really not. Now, what we have not given away is what a lot of people don't seem to understand, is AA is made up of two fundamental concepts, and that is the program, which includes the 12 steps, and the fellowship, which we limit to drunks. So Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other. They may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. So when you get off on some of these wild tangents that some people get off on every once in a while, like CODA and some of these other idiotic things, you have to ask yourself only one question. Do I want to stay sober or don't I? Do I want to follow the AA concept within the fellowship, or do I want to dilute it and follow some other concept which may or may not work, or which you may or may not need? Because obviously we've got an awful lot of people in AA who need an awful lot of help, and not all of it can come from just staying sober. Now, those of you who are here Sunday will hear my wife talk, and I'm sure that she will prove to all of you beyond the shadow of a doubt that you do not have to recover emotionally to stay sober for 25 years, because she has. For those of you who may be interested, and I doubt if many of you are, I came into this way of life in June 1960. I've been hanging around here for 31 years, and I have recovered from alcoholism. One of the things I have not recovered from is looking at girls. What has happened is I still look at girls' legs, but I have reached the age of where I have forgotten what the significance of it is. I knew I used to enjoy it, so I still do it. I just forgot why. And that's one thing that you new people should understand, is when you come into this way of life, what will happen is you will get serenity long before you get senility. And what will happen is you'll be like an old whore that got her virginity back, and you won't know what the hell to do with it. Well, I'll tell you what to do with it. You just enjoy having it. You don't have to do anything with it. It's really not important that you do anything with it. There are a few words in this book that are a little different than the new books. In this book, we're called ex-alcoholics. The new book, ex-problem drinkers. But fundamentally, it's saying the same thing. The 12th step was a little different. It says having had a spiritual experience, where the new book says spiritual awakening, and yet fundamentally it's still the same concept. There's really not anything that much different about it. And if you read this book, you could say, well, I'm reading the other book, except when you come across one of those changes, it might seem a little different, except for this one simple fact. This book, the basic text, is 179 pages long, not 164 as they are in the new books. Because the doctor's opinion in this book is page 1. It is not chapter 1, but it's page 1. In the new books, well, the conference decided here a while back that the doctor wasn't an alcoholic, so they put it in italics and kind of made it an addendum to the book. And I don't believe that should have happened, delegate or no delegate present. But what I do believe is that if you read the doctor's opinion, you'll probably be reading one of the most graphic examples of and explanations of alcoholism I've ever read anywhere. You know what Silkworth said about it? He said men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. Why in the hell else would you drink it? Did you ever go to a party someplace and somebody says, oh, I can't have no more, I'm starting to feel it? Why else would you drink the damn stuff? Now, there's an abnormal drinker. There's two kinds of abnormal drinkers, those who don't drink enough and those who drink too much, and we're dealing with those who drank too much if there had been too much, but there wasn't too much if there had been. See how you can complicate this damn thing? In my case, there wasn't enough. And it always took just a little bit more than I had to accomplish something. I don't know what I was trying to accomplish. It doesn't really matter, because I would have drank it up anyway if I'd accomplished it, so I didn't lose nothing in the long run either, did I? But you see how the myth can surround Alcoholics Anonymous? Because so many people come in and they have so many different problems, and they forget to solve the main problem, and they solve all the other problems, and they become well-adjusted. Now you got a well-adjusted drunk on your hands. Alcoholics Anonymous is simple. Let's keep it that way so we can all understand it. Now, Silkworth said that we're restless, irritable, and discontented unless we can experience that sense of ease and comfort that comes at once from taking a few drinks. We didn't drink to get in knife fights. We didn't drink for any reason except that sense of ease and comfort that comes at once from taking a few drinks. The things that happened after that are difficult to explain. They're even difficult to understand. And that was the first major experience I had in this way of life when I told a fella I drank when I didn't want to, hurt people I didn't want to hurt, did things I didn't want to do. He said two words I've never forgotten. He said, I understand. You know, that's the first time in my life that I ever described these things to anyone, and they said, I understand. What they had done is told me what I should do, could do, ought to do, and needed to do, but they never said, I understand. He did. I don't remember who it was, but I've never forgotten it. Now, like most of you, when I come into this way of life, I got myself what you people today call a sponsor. Back then we called them adversaries. And one day he'd come over to me and he said, I've heard a little of your story and I think you're a thief. And we have a book around here for sale and I want you to buy the book and I want to see the receipt. And if I see you with the book without a receipt, I'm going to call law and have you arrested. And I thought he would, so I bought the book, showed him the receipt, started to read the damn thing. It is probably one of the most archaic, poorly written pieces of literature that's ever been foisted on the American public. In either side of the border, too, incidentally. Difficult to understand because it's utterly simple. Bill, you know, you ever heard people say, well, Bill did that because he didn't want to repeat himself. Like hell, if you read this book, he repeated himself all the way through it. Time after countless time. Because he knew if he didn't repeat himself 4 or 5 times, that you drunks would miss what he was trying to say. Because we have a tendency to overlook instead of look over because of this backwards concept that we have. Now, I made a mistake in that I asked him if he'd mind explaining to me what was in this book. He said, no, of course not. I'll be glad to do that. Now, I'll tell you something about this guy. He died here about 6 years ago, and I'm sure he died on his terms, not on God's. And he never done anything for anyone without some kind of a hook. And he said, if you'll tell me what's on the first page, I'll be glad to tell you what's on all the rest of the pages. Oh, that seemed like a simple enough task for a man of my ability, so I memorized what I thought was the first page in this book. And I thought it was a page that said, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. And I repeated that for him word for word, comma for comma, just like it was written. And he said, that's not it. I said, it is too. He said, it is not. I said, it is. He says, no, it ain't. I said, it certainly is. He said, no, it is not. I went home and read it. It was. Went back and told him so. And he said, my young friend, that's not the first page in the book. I memorized every page from there forward. The table of contents, some of them gave me a hell of a start, but I got them memorized. And yet every time I'd tell him what I'd memorized, he'd say, that's not it. Well, finally, I opened this book up one day, and I looked at it, and it says, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I thought, I got him. I went up to him, and I said, Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, what's the matter with you? You crazy? And I said, no, sir, I am not. You told me if I told you what was on the first page of this book, you would tell me what was on all the rest of the pages. And he said, that I would, my young friend, but you have not. With that, he went over to an end table in the club room, picked up a book, held it up so I could see it, and he said, this, my young friend, is the first page in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And there is absolutely nothing on the first page. And it has taken you over 3 months to learn about a page with nothing on it. How long do you think it's going to take to learn about a page with all the printing on it? And once again, he'd made a fool out of me. Then he said something I've not forgotten. He said, that's the last time the white should ever bother you. From now on, just read the black. It'll make more sense. Now, when I'd been sober about a month, one of the older members took me by the hand, led me into the kitchen on a Thursday night, and pointed to a stack of cups about this high. Those were not those plastic cups. These were cups you had to wash. And he said 2 words to me. He said, wash them. I said, who are you talking to? He said, I'm talking to you. I said, you go to hell. And he said, either you wash those cups or you get the hell out of here and give your seat to somebody who will do what we tell them, because we don't need your kind. So I washed them damn cups. I had no place else to go. I had to wash the cups to stay there. Every Thursday night, I washed them stinking cups for 5 solid months. I got so I hated coffee cups, coffee drinkers, lipstick on coffee cups, cigarette butts in coffee cups. Even coffee I got to hate. But I washed them. Then when I was sober about 6 months or a little over, somebody else come in there with someone else and said the same 2 words to him. Wash them. I looked around at him. I said, who are you talking to? He said, I'm talking to him. I said, he ain't going to wash my cups. And I begin to learn about Alcoholics Anonymous. We don't get drunks in AA by promising them a spiritual way of life and total abstinence from alcohol. We trick them, as I was tricked. You want somebody to go to a meeting? I'll tell you exactly how to do it. Don't tell him that he's going to get spiritual and will never drink again. Tell him to stay away from such and such a meeting because there's a bunch of sick broads in there who'll have your pants off of you in 30 minutes. I'll guarantee you that night at 8 o'clock with a tie on, he will be there. So, we understand how to use our defects of character for the benefit of others instead of selfishly as we once did, and this way of life becomes a little clearer. A month or two after that, I was in a meeting one night. Some young lady said something I didn't agree with, and I told her what I thought of her, her family, her ancestors, her progeny. And when the meeting was over, she came up to me and she said, I hate your guts. And I had had my first emotional involvement in Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I know to a lot of you that may sound a little facetious, but it really was not. Up until that time, no one had really given a damn one way or the next. And this woman cared enough to hate my guts. Now, that's improvement. And I begin to understand a little bit more about the way of life that we talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous. It wasn't too long after that. I'd been sober a little over a year, and that Thursday night meeting at the North Hollywood group in those days was a big meeting and a speaker meeting, and they had wonderful speakers, people that you will probably have all have heard of. A guy named Walter O'Keefe was there quite often, and Queen for a Day, Jack Bailey was there, and a whole bunch of them. And I got what was the equivalent of the Academy Award from that group one Thursday. They asked me if I would lead the Lord's Prayer. God, what an honor that was. And I'm sitting out in the coffee room repeating the Lord's Prayer over and over, word for word. Boy, I'm going to get this thing perfect. And a friend of mine come in and he sat down beside me, listened to me for a minute or two. He said, what the hell are you mumbling about? I said, well, you're not going to believe this. If they asked me to lead the Lord's Prayer tonight and I'm practicing it. He said, oh, my God, man, all you got to do is say, Our Father, and shut up. They know the prayer. They just don't know when to start. And I'd learned a little bit about keeping it simple. You know, that night, I got up, I said, Our Father, shut up, and they went on as if I wasn't even there. They knew the prayer. They just didn't know when to start. Now I learned about simplicity. When I'd been sober a couple or 3 years, I told my first wife, I said, you know, if I'd have had cancer instead of being an alcoholic, you wouldn't have been mad at me all the time like you were. She said, if you'd have peed on my divan, I would have. And I learned about responsibility, to be responsible for my own actions, and stop trying to place that responsibility somewhere else where it did not belong, but to be responsible. And I began to understand more about this AA way of life. And when I'd been sober a little over 3 years, I made a great, fantastic discovery from a newcomer. So anyone can help you if you will let them. No one can if you don't. It's not complex to understand. I was complaining about the coffee because they used canned milk in the coffee down at North Hollywood, and I did not like the taste of the damn stuff. And this newcomer, who happened to be a woman, said, well, if you don't like it, don't drink it. That had never occurred to me. Started bringing my own cream, incidentally. I'll show these people. So understand the simplicity of Alcoholics Anonymous. Understand the backwards concept of it and the myth that surrounds it. And it begins in the doctor's opinion. What is that effect produced by alcohol? Jails, sanitariums, knife fights? No, it's none of these things. For some reason, no one quite understands alcohol has the effect on the ego of some people that it doesn't have on others. And when you take a few drinks, you really feel like you're better looking, better businessman, better dancer, better everything with the few drinks than you are without it. And dependency on alcohol has begun even though you didn't even know it. Now, what's going to happen, fellas? You're going to come into AA and something's going to happen. You're going to stop drinking. Nothing's going to feed your ego. And what you're going to do is you're going to look around for her to feed your ego. And you will find her, And she will feed your ego. She will do for you just exactly what alcohol done for you, and then she will do to you just exactly what alcohol done to you also. So be awfully careful about your procedures. Restless, irritable, and discontent, because we're trying to run the show. Many people in AA try to become a power greater than themselves and find out it does not work. We have to depend on a power greater than ourselves, as we always have, because the myth in AA starts with step one and it really goes on from there. A lot of people don't quite understand that in the first step, all you have really done is admit there is a power greater than yourself that can make your life completely unmanageable. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. And incidentally, there is no and in there. It's a hyphenated sentence. One step, one sentence, not two parts, one part. There is a power in this universe that can screw up your life something fierce. It isn't new. It's talked about in the Bible. It's talked about, religions knew about it before they even knew about the Bible. The power for evil. When you get to step two, what's so complicated about that? People say, I can do step one, can't do step two. The hell you can't. All you're doing in step two is admitting there is a power greater than yourself that can restore you to sanity and make your life manageable again. Two powers. A power for good, a power for evil. Now the choice is yours. And that's where you'll have your first problem. Making a decision. You've been so used to making staff judgments, you don't even know what a decision is for 10 years. You want to make that decision or not? Which do you want? You're free to do it because step three gives you that freedom. A lot of people, and I've had a lot of fellas tell me, well, I turn my will, my life over to the care of God. Now He's going to go to work for me. I want to tell you something. I went to seminary for a few years when I was a young man, and I read the Bible a few times. In the book of Genesis, it tells a story about God having gotten a job, worked 6 days, nights, created the heavens and the earth, took a day off, and there's no record He ever went to work ever for anyone, ever again. And the book doesn't say He will go to work for you. It says as long as we stay close to Him and do His work well. His work. Not our work. His work. Well, now you're going to find out something happens. You turn your self-will over to God. Now you got your free will back. Now you're going to be confused all over again. You're going to say, what do I do with it? You don't do anything with it. Its free will is God-given. Everyone in this room is free to do what they want to do. You can stay here. You can get up and walk out. There's nobody going to force you to stay here, and nobody going to throw you out. That's free will. Not self-will. Free will. And you will devote your life to carrying this message of recovery, one drunk to another, in spite of all the obstacles that you encounter. You will carry the message of love in a world full of hate. And it will take every bit of the bullheaded determination that you have mastered over these years to do that, but you will do it, or you will drink. There's really nothing complicated about it. And we've talked about 3 steps so far in Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's no difficulty in any of those steps, except the myth. And we have a lot of people saying, cooperation with the professional community. I cooperate with the professional community. If doctors will not try to teach us 12 steps, I will not practice medicine. That is cooperation as far as I'm concerned. I'm not concerned with any other interpretation. To each his own, that we should do what we can do to help anybody better understand the alcoholic, and whether you know it or not, and you Al-Anons better listen to this. It says in the first preface to this book, we have written a book which we hope will help everyone better understand the alcoholic. Now, what's so complex, so difficult about this? I know of people, you don't up here in Canada because you got this high-priced free medicine, but I've known of people down in the States that spend from $10,000 to $50,000 to go through a treatment center to be detoxed, and they teach them a little bit about 2 or 3 of the steps, what little they know. I can't use those kind of words in meetings, but I can do the same thing for $10. You can be detoxed with a tablespoon and a half pint. I'll guarantee you it is not pleasant. It isn't exactly Havre de Grace, Maryland. But by God, it'll work. And you won't forget it. for a long time when you shake one out. That I will guarantee you. And you can take a $10 bill and buy yourself a copy of the book, which is $3 or $4. And you take the balance of the money and you buy the biggest box of X-Lax you can find. And you eat the whole box. And you will understand exactly what we're talking about when we say that we are powerless. You will understand exactly what an unmanageable life is. You will come to understand a power greater than yourself. And you will turn your will and your life over to anyone or anything that'll just get you off the pot for a little while, and you will admit that you are nuts to have done it the first place, and that is the first 3 steps in Alcoholics Anonymous. You've done it for $10. Nothing complicated about it, nothing difficult about it, nothing unreasonable about it. So we get to step 4. Oh, my God. I asked a guy once, when should you take the 5th step? He said, when the statute of limitations run out. That sounded like good advice to me. If you don't take a 4th, you don't take a 5th. So for a long time, I did not take a 4th step. And then this adversary of mine caught up with me. And he said, kid, you've been freeloading off long enough. It's time you took an inventory. Took an inventory. Wrote out in longhand. Seen the syntax was right. Punctuated it properly for readability. Add a little addendum with this resentment list they talk about in here. Put a loose leaf notebook and handed it to him. He took one look at it. He said, what's this, a movie script? I said, no, sir, that is my inventory. He thumbed through it and he said, my God, I'm an actor. I know a script when I see one. This one won't play. And he handed it back to me. I said, that is not a movie script. That is my inventory. He said, it is not. I said, it is. He said, it is not. I said, it is too. He said, no, it's not, my young friend. What you've done is itemized your behavioral patterns. And I have no doubt you've edited it so damn well that neither you nor I will ever know how you was ever wrong about anything. With that, he reached in his coat pocket, took out a very small notebook, tore out one sheet, handed it to me, said, take your inventory on this. I said, I can't. He said, you can. I said, I cannot. He said, you can too. I said, no, I can't. It's too small. He said, it is not. He said, have you ever told a little story you knew did not match the facts in the case? I said, of course I have. You know that too. He said, then write down liar. Now, I don't know about you, but I did not like the way this inventory was starting to turn out. He said, you ever play around with the girls when you was married to somebody else? I said, of course I have. You know that too. He said, then write down cheat. He started to walk away, and he said, oh, incidentally, at the top of that page, did you write down atheist? I said, I told you I was a Baptist. He said, what's the difference? Now, you know, for a long time that seemed like an insulting remark, but I couldn't get it out of my mind. And then something began to happen that I had seen many times and totally ignored. Do you know that quite often a spiritual concept is an obstacle, or a deep religious conviction is an obstacle to a spiritual concept? Have you ever heard someone say, if you're not a good Baptist, what the hell good are you? If you're not a good Catholic, you're good for nothing. And the greatest of all spiritual concepts is only 2 words long. 2 words, and they cannot exist under those conditions. Those words are our Father. Our Father. Cannot exist under those conditions. But you will find that when our Father does exist, there are no longer blacks, whites, men, women, Yankees, Chicanos, just troubled people. People we can help. And you will begin now to understand that we are God's kids. He's the Father. We're the kids. Some of us are a long ways from home. Some of us may never see home. But we're still God's kids, each and every one of us. And we can help. And we should. And AA tells us that the primary purpose of any group is to carry its spiritual message to the alcoholic who still suffers. That's what it used to say before some of the Bill Wilson and some of the other people got hold of it and took the word spiritual out. A group is any 2 or more. Because some people are meaner than hell. If a group ain't enough, go as a mob. But for Christ's sakes, go. You can help where no one else can, because you will understand as no one else understands. And somehow or another you will convey that understanding to that guy. I don't care what condition he's in. He will know somehow you understand as no one else did, and his nosiness will cause him to keep questing you out to find out what it is you know and how you understand when no one else did. And then you'll realize that we're all God's kids. Maybe in another 10 or 15 years, you might even begin to realize you're not an only child. That will be an improvement. But you see, by taking inventory in this manner, I begin to understand a lot of things that I never understood before, because there was one thing I encountered that bothered me. And I went up to him one day and I said, you know, being a thief doesn't bother me. He said, why should it? We at Alcoholics Anonymous are not moralists. It's not up to any of us to determine the morals of anyone else. He said, but you told me once that lying did bother you. I said, it does. He said, how are you going to steal without lying? And he had me for a little while. But I thought about it, and then I found a way. You see, almost everything that I have said so far here this evening, I have stolen from something or someone and weaved it together in the form of a story that I hope will help someone else better understand what this way of life is all about. And I have used that defective character unselfishly, and now it is no longer defective. It's just a character trait. And you find that you cannot get rid of a character trait. It is God-given. You stop using it selfishly, and it stops becoming defective. And you will find the character trait of a pathological liar and a novelist are identically the same character trait. And we have great works of literature now written by people who have the same character traits as pathological liars, and remarkably similar. Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, written by the Bronte sisters. But you know they wrote under the name of Bell, not Bronte. And what about Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain? Some of the greatest American literature is right there. And yet Mark Twain was only a pen name. The Bells were only a pen name, a nom de plume. But with me they were aliases. But isn't it remarkably similar? And haven't we all made up stories to explain some of our actions that we never should have taken to start with? And haven't we seen that talent go to hell because we used it selfishly instead of for the help of others? And AA is offering you that opportunity. So when you take an inventory, you don't have to go back 25 years to find out you're a jerk. All you're supposed to do is see what you're like today. And you'll find out that it's very simple. You cheat, you lie, you steal, you violate every one of the 10 Commandments without even knowing what you're doing. Now, I know there's a lot of you atheists that's going to bother a little bit. I understand it. You mention Christ from a podium, their hair stands right straight up. You can mention Buddha, it don't bother them. You mention Muhammad, it don't bother them. You mention Kung Fu Tea, they don't even know who the hell you're talking about. Mention Christ, they get angry. Why is that? It's because he was the only person that could turn water into wine, and you still resent it. Thank God. Contempt prior to investigation all over again, isn't it? It's a simple understanding. There's nothing difficult about it, and there's nothing compulsory about it. That's free will. Understand what free will is. Understand that you can violate the commandments, and you will have no morals to live by, because the 10 Commandments are only moral laws. And I've had a woman tell me once, she said, well, I never committed adultery. Well, under knowing her as well as I did, I could damn well understand why nobody'd ever ask her. But do you know what that really means? It means don't weaken, don't dilute. Do you know how many people commit adultery in AA by diluting a program and inviting non-alcoholics into this concept because they're related to them? My child needs it. Your child needs to be locked up. AA does not lock you up. My daughter, my youngest grandson both got hooked on drugs. I did not invite them into Alcoholics Anonymous. But I was given a tremendous obstacle to live up to one of the basic concepts of AA that says when anyone anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA to be there, and for that I am responsible. It doesn't say one damn word about inviting them into this fellowship, but if you can help, you should help. And I was invited down to Phoenix, Arizona last May, a year ago, to be the closing speaker at a Cocaine Anonymous meeting. And when I got down there, the young fella said, "You know, Hugh, I understand that you have never used drugs." He said, "Why did you come down here to talk to us?" I said, "Well, it's really very simple. I'd do anything in the world I could do to get you cokeheads out of AA, and if that means helping you strengthen your program, I'm damn glad to do it." The concept of being of service to anyone that you can help and understanding how to apply that concept is where the difficulty comes in, because we don't take the time to understand. You know how many people will go to a step meeting and how damn few will go to a tradition meeting, and how fewer still will show up at one of these delegates meetings? You think the 12 traditions do not apply to you? Let me point out something to you. You may have overlooked only about one of those traditions. Let's take number 8, for example. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional. That's a simple statement. There's a lot of people that would like to professionalize it. Well, let me tell you what happened down in the States. We turned our educational system over to the professionals. Now our children get out of school after 12 years and they can neither read nor write. We turned our criminal justice system over to the professionals, and now people live in their homes behind locked doors and barred windows, and criminals walk the streets. So Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional. A bunch of drunks trying to stay sober. No professionals. Everything I say is what I have experienced in the last 31 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it may have no effect whatsoever on you. There is room for us all. Let's not step on one another's toes. Let's not carry the tradition of anonymity so far that nobody else can find us. It tells us what level to be anonymous at, the public level. It doesn't tell us to use Hugh D. I don't know where in the hell that started. I've been trying to figure that one out for the last 25 years. Just when talking publicly about AA, to describe yourself only as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I guess you can talk publicly about it if you want to. You'll get a lot of flack, but what the hell difference does it make? You may be wrong, but we got a step that takes care of that. There's no step in AA that takes care of doing nothing, so don't worry about it. What happens when you get to step 5? Step 4 is not the psychiatrist's couch. I want to point that out to you right now. Step 5 is not the Catholic confessional. I want to point that out to you right now. But as you talk to someone about any one of your defects of character, if you understand that just being a liar alone, that you will suffer a great curse. And it won't be that no one believes you, but it will believe that you can believe no one. And if no one believes you and you believe no one, you will be lonely. And if you're lonely, your chances of staying sober are remarkably slim. And as you talk to somebody about just this one thing, you'll see how that could permeate your whole life. And how this caused you trouble after trouble after trouble, time after time after time. And we're only talking of one result of living selfishly. Only one. There are others. When you weaken anything, you adulterate it. When you destroy anybody's hopes, dreams, and ambitions, you have killed, not murdered. But then that does not say, thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not kill. Do we have the right to kill the hopes of our wives, our friends, our children? Or do we use this selfishly all over again and forget that we're simply violating one of God's laws that says this way you can live together comfortably for a while? Maybe we just don't understand. Maybe we don't give a damn. Maybe we should. I talked about these things. I still do. I have found that I can take these steps. I've not found that I can work them. And I find nothing in this book that says anything about working the steps. When you take a physic, what works what? Do you work it or does it work you? It says here are the steps we took. Then you're ready to take certain steps. Read the book, for God's sakes. Don't just take my word for it. I've been wrong before. Bevel told you Sunday I've probably been wrong since, but understand it. A lot of people say, we didn't take nothing out of the Bible. The hell we didn't. Did you ever hear somebody say, this too will change? You know, it says in the Bible, as this too shall pass. No place in the Bible does it say it came to stay either, incidentally. Understand this way of life. Understand that we had no choice but to take the best from medicine, the best from religion, the best from psychology, the best from anything, and apply it as we could apply it according to our understanding of what was wrong with us. And let's always understand that we deal with moral psychology, not psychiatry. You may not ever become emotionally stable, but we don't give out cakes for emotional stability. We give them out for physical sobriety. And if you don't believe me and you're ever down in Southern California, go to the Pacific Group some for Wednesday night. There's a guy down there that's got 30-some years sober. Nutty as a fruitcake. He don't drink. They give him a cake every year with one more candle on it. That's all that's required. You don't have to become emotionally stable. If you did, my wife would never have gotten one. And she says the proof of that is that I'm married to you. And that is another point I want to make before I close here this evening. A lot of women think I hate women. I don't hate women. I'm scared of them, but I don't hate them. I was raised by a widowed mother with 3 sisters. I've been married 3 times. I've raised 3 daughters, and if that doesn't scare the hell out of you, you've got absolutely no fear anyway whatsoever. But I don't like it when you're rude, and you are. When Bev and I were going to get married, there was a friend of ours who came up to me one day, and she was from Oklahoma. Talks funny in that part of the country. And she says, "Is it true that you and Beverly Jean are going to get married?" And I said, "Yeah, Dottie, that's true. Why?" And she said, "Oh, I'm so glad to hear that." She said, "Incidentally, is it true that Beverly can't have no babies?" I said, "Yeah, that's true. Why?" She said, "Oh, I'm so damn glad to hear you two can't reproduce yourselves." Now, this protrudes me a little bit. It bothers me. It tells me in the book that I can work these steps to absolute perfection, but do not be discouraged because no one among us has been able to live up to anything like perfect adherence to these principles. You can take the steps absolutely, each and every one of them, to its perfect order in your case, and you'll find that you still cannot live up to all of the principles all of the time. We do not claim to be perfect, only to make progress. AA does not make you perfect. It shows you where you're imperfect. And then you decide whether you want to continue that way or not. Sober, the decisions will be better than they will if you're drinking. Understand that? There's nothing complicated about it so far. There's nothing complicated about 6 and 7, except people say, well, it's all the same step. The hell it is. One of them talks about defects of character. One of them talks about shortcoming. If you go out in the morning and your car has a flat, that is a defect of character. If you go out in the morning and your car is gone, that is a shortcoming. What's so hard to understand about that? Has it ever occurred to any of you that none of us have all of the qualities any of us really need? It says in the Bible, and I want to go back to that again for you atheists and agnostics, that God took a part of the Adam away and created a woman. That means there's a part of me missing. When I got Beverly, I got that part back. It's defective, I will admit, but at least, you see, she has qualities I don't have. She has infinite patience with you girls. I have no patience with you at all. She is tender, gentle, kind. I'm impulsive, quick. I'm not fast, but I'm quick. And when they call up, they don't like to talk to me. One of them called up, who was the matron of honor at our wedding a few weeks after we got married, and she said, "Is Beverly there?" And I said, "No, not right now." And she said, "Oh, my God, I got to talk to somebody, even if it's you." See, you begin to understand why my attitude toward you may need adjusting occasionally, but it isn't because I hate you. It's because you're rude and you're cruel, and I'm sensitive. And you don't understand that. But I'm sure that as you proceed down this road of happy destiny, not to happy destiny, that you too will understand. A while back, I pulled into my bank to go to the ready teller machine, and there was a young lady in a car talking to another young lady, and her door was open. and I had to pull in diagonally. I couldn't park with her door open. I beeped the horn a couple of times. She looked around at me and turned back and started talking to this girl again. I sat there for a moment or two in silent meditation, beeped the horn a couple more times. She looked around at me again, turned back and started talking to the girl again. I pulled my car right into the parking place, almost against her door, stopped, locked my car, and got out, and went to the ready teller. And she jumped out of her car, and she follows me over the ready teller. And she said, I can't close my door. I said, so what else is new? She said, I was going to the ready teller. I said, you're first after me. I used the ready teller, got back in my car, and drove away. Do not be discouraged. No one among us is able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. I'm glad they put that in the book. Now, somebody asked me if I would do this same thing if it had been some guy 6'3", weighed about 200 and played for the Rams. I don't know. It wasn't that, so I don't know, and I'm not looking forward to it. But who knows what I would have done if the conditions had been different. I do believe in self-preservation. Believe me. But I am not too sure about these words self that I keep hearing people talk about. I want self-worth. I need self-esteem. Work for it. You'll get it. But be careful. Because over these years I've watched self-worth turn into arrogance and self-esteem turn into conceit, and people go right back where they came from. You know what the book says about it? Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. It doesn't say one thing about self-improvement, regardless of what some of the people with education may tell you. This is not a self-improvement program. You will get better as you stop drinking, but mostly because you get older. That never occurs to anyone. They think that because you've been sober for 30 or 40 years that you have got wisdom. You have gotten senile. Not wisdom. Age alone would do these things, except you won't live long enough if you drink. If you don't drink, you probably will. Then you'll discover if you knew you was going to live so damn long, you'd have took better care of yourself. Life is not always a bowl of cherries. Life's life. It doesn't love you. It doesn't hate you. The trouble is that it's indifferent. And that's the one thing that alcoholics have a hell of a problem with. Indifference. If you love us or hate us, it doesn't bother us, but when you're indifferent to us, we go nuts. We're going to make you care, damn you, whether you want to or not. You won't understand a lot of the concepts in AA because of the myth that's behind them. They're difficult sometimes to understand, and the word honesty is probably one of the most difficult words to understand for most alcoholics. I had trouble with it. I made a mistake of going to this adversary of mine, asking him about that damn word, too. I should never do those things, but I did. I knew what dishonesty was. I'd been in business out there in California for 10 years. I damn well knew what dishonesty was, but honesty I had a problem with. So I asked him to explain it to me. Now, the book says to grasp and develop a manner of living that demands rigorous honesty. It doesn't say to develop honesty. To grasp and develop a manner of living which demands it. That's telling you, first of all, you got to stop being a phony. You got to be yourself. Then you're going to say, well, I don't know who I am. You don't have to know who you are. All you got to know is who you ain't. And stop being that. But honesty was a problem. And I asked him for my explaining it to me, and he said, no, of course not. He said, let's assume, young man, that there was a man and a woman who were both married to someone else, and they get together one day, decide to go to a motel. And they go up to the desk clerk to register, and he looks at them, and he says, are you married? And they say, yes, we are. He gives them the key. They go inside. Now, he said, you tell me how honesty would have applied to that. I thought about it for a little while, and I couldn't see too much wrong with it. I hadn't been in that position for a while. It sounded like a good idea on the surface, but it also seemed rather obvious. I said, well, if they were honest, they'd said, yeah, we're married, but not to each other. He said, no, that's not it. He said, that would have been the truth, and it would have eliminated a sin of omission. But it has absolutely nothing to do with honesty. One more time, for 3 more months, I tried to figure that damn thing out. And I knew where he was going to be on this particular night, so I went there to kill him if he didn't give me the damned answer to the problem. And I walked up to him and I said, what about the man and the woman and the honesty? How the hell does it apply? He said, do you mean to tell me you haven't figured that out yet? I said, no, I have not. He said, young man, you amaze me. He said, if they'd have been honest, they would not have been there. And that had never occurred to me. But you know, something did begin to make sense to me right after that. Truth deals with facts. Honesty deals with integrity. Integrity is the magic word in Alcoholics Anonymous because integrity is action, and action certainly is the magic word. And the way we treat our fellow man, the integrity that we show, the way we keep our word, or the way we don't give it if we can't keep it. And there's nothing in AA that says you got to do it simply because somebody else asked you to. That's a misnomer. It says give freely of what you find here. If you can't freely give it, don't be a phony. Just say, I can't give it tonight. I can't be there tonight. I can't do this. There's nothing wrong with not being able to. There is something wrong with being a martyr. You'll find out that that's just another way of being half-assed. You'll find that there are an awful lot of mistaken concepts because of so many people using these 12 steps in so many different ways. CODA certainly is one of them that has a mistaken belief that they're members of Alcoholics Anonymous because General Service and some others have given them permission to reprint and gives them the illusion that they're now part of the total all-over AA concept when this is not true. It may be essential for many people to follow this concept. I have nothing against it. I don't go to it, but I ain't got nothing against it. Contempt prior to investigation prevents that. But AA knew about it when they wrote this book. Did you ever read it? Job or no job, wife or no wife. We found we could not quit drinking so long as we placed our dependence upon things human ahead of our dependence upon God, and that is exactly the problem most people in CODA have, is they attempt to get from another living human being what only God can give them and never read, that probably no human power could have relieved our suffering. No human power. There's nothing complex, nothing complicated, nothing difficult, nothing extraordinary asked of anyone. Come back tomorrow. Give freely of what you have found here. Join us. What's so difficult about that? Admit your faults to God and to your fellows. My God, that was taken directly out of the New Testament. You'll find that there's nothing here that will make demands on you beyond your ability to do. We don't expect too much of you when you're new, and we expect even less after you've been here for 30 years, oddly enough, because we know you ain't got the strength you used to have. There's nothing wrong with that. You think that a lot of these AA birthdays is going to give you something? I'll tell you something you may have overlooked. For every AA birthday you get, you're going to get a natal birthday to go along with it. So if you're 35 when you get here, you hang around for 31 years, you're going to be damn near 66. I know I did, I have, and I am, and that is the story that this drunk has to tell. One based on recovery, on a concept that Alcoholics Anonymous has become world famous for. And I'll close by telling you something that many people don't seem to understand about the Lasker Award. We were given the Lasker Award because we developed a new therapy based on the kinship of common suffering, one having a vast potential in the myriad other ills of mankind. So we freely give our steps and our program to anyone who can use it. But always remember, we reserve our fellowship for another drunk. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. And if that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.